The chosen one carries a dual reality, a profound spiritual purpose and a physical vessel that must often absorb the immense energetic pressures of that purpose. You have experienced the suffering, the inexplicable fatigue, the heaviness behind the eyes, and the subtle discomforts that defy earthly logic and often evade conventional remedy. This is because the spiritual warfare waged around your destiny often registers first and most powerfully in the physical matter of your body. The body acts as the final sentinel, the physical recording device for every stress, unresolved trauma, and spiritual attack the soul endures. The ailment, therefore, is not a random mechanical fault. It is a diagnostic signal from the universe, pointing toward an energetic misalignment that must be corrected before the final mandate can be executed. We are taught by the external world to view the body as a machine that can break, a fragile, isolated system, wholly dependent on external repairs. But the higher spiritual reality is that your body is a consecrated temple, a magnificent, self-regulating, self-repairing unit designed to reflect the energetic purity of the spirit housed within it. Any physical distress is often the final, loudest signal that your spiritual alignment has been compromised by external stressors, emotional residue, unforgiveness, or the constant low-frequency interference of the world. The pain you feel is the body's attempt to isolate and contain the energetic contamination before it spreads further. It is not betrayal, it is communication. It is a system crying out for internal resolution. And here is the deep, unsettling truth that must settle into your soul today. Your body is going to reverse and cure its own state. This is not a miracle in the sense of an arbitrary, rare intervention. It is the unavoidable, mechanical consequence of a spiritual law that you are now consciously activating. As you shift your energetic frequency back into the pure alignment required for your divine mandate, the physical body must, by the law of resonance, release all states of disorder and return to its original, perfect blueprint. The healing becomes a byproduct of your alignment. It becomes the physical proof that the inner refinement, the silent battles, the unseen surrender, and the deep spiritual corrections are now complete. This profound, peaceful reversal of physical ailment is the divine promise of provision, the guarantee that the vessel required for the mission will be fully sound. God is not merely offering you health. He is commanding you to embody the 7 non-negotiable spiritual elements that must be permanently integrated into your being to create an internal energetic environment where sickness cannot attach itself. These 7 elements are the keys to the inner temple, spiritual mechanisms capable of purifying the subtle energetic bodies that govern the physical form and triggering the cellular recalibration that leads to sustained physical renewal. Your role in this magnificent process is one of quiet, consistent integration. It requires sober reflection, the release of low-frequency patterns, and a gentle yet unwavering willingness to obey the divine instructions shaping your evolution. Embrace the stillness, honor the recalibration. The sacred restoration of your physical temple has already begun. Point 1, the element of sovereign stillness, parasympathetic activation. The first element God requires in your body is the element of sovereign stillness. This is not merely a spiritual suggestion or an optional practice for moments of convenience. It is a divine requirement, a foundational law built into both your biology and your spiritual architecture. Sovereign stillness is the sacred discipline of prioritizing deliberate pauses of inner quiet throughout your day, moments where you step away from the noise, the striving, the urgent demands, and return to your spiritual center point. This still point is not a luxury. It is the literal spiritual mechanism that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's built-in command center for rest, digestion, restoration, and healing. When the chosen one lives in non-stop motion, pressure, and external demand, the body becomes trapped in the sympathetic state, commonly known as the fight-or-flight mode. In this heightened state, your body is flooded with stress hormones designed for survival, not healing. Your heart rate increases, digestion slows, inflammation rises, and your immune system becomes compromised. The body is essentially bracing for danger, even when no danger is present. And in this condition, healing is biologically impossible. This is why God requires stillness. It is spiritual obedience that manifests as profound physical peace. Sovereign stillness is not about laziness or passivity. It is a confident spiritual surrender to non-striving, a deliberate declaration to your own nervous system that you refuse to live in fear, urgency, or internal chaos. When you sink into this stillness, even for a few minutes, you flood your body with restorative, high-frequency hormones that support cellular regeneration, detoxification, and repair. You shift from survival mode into healing mode. Your body starts doing what God designed it to do. The sympathetic state, on the other hand, is the biological reflection of a spiritual imbalance, specifically fear, hypervigilance, and emotional overload. It keeps the body locked in emergency mode, diverting blood flow away from the organs and away from the immune system, sending it instead to the extremities for running or fighting. The lymphatic system, which requires a calm and steady internal rhythm to clear toxins, becomes stagnant. The digestive system slows, hormonal balance breaks down, healing is deferred again and again. Sovereign stillness reverses this biological command. When you enter silence, when you breathe deeply, when you release the mind from worry, planning, and mental noise, you send a clear message through the entire nervous system. The threat is gone. You are safe. You may heal now. The body listens. The parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Blood returns to the organs. Cellular repair activates. Inflammation decreases. The heart steadies. The mind clears. This is not imagination. This is divine physiology. Practically, sovereign stillness means implementing non-negotiable periods of silence throughout your day. Times where the mind is intentionally released from stimulation. No scrolling, no background noise, no new information, no emotional engagement, just breath, awareness, and surrender. This repeated practice activates the vagus nerve, the central highway of the parasympathetic system, strengthening it the same way consistent training strengthens a muscle. Over time, your body begins to default to calm rather than chaos. This consistent activation generates the sustained release of anti-inflammatory compounds, restorative neurochemicals, and regenerative hormones, providing the biological foundation for the body to reverse chronic stress-based conditions. The spiritual law here is absolute. Internal quietude dictates external health. When the spirit is still, the body remembers how to heal. Point 2, the element of absolute forgiveness, emotional detoxification. The second essential element is absolute forgiveness. Unforgiveness acts as a low-frequency energy reservoir stored primarily in the body's soft tissues and organs, creating energetic knots that eventually manifest as chronic pain, emotional heaviness, or even long-term disease. Most people believe forgiveness is an emotional gesture toward the perpetrator, But in spiritual reality, it is nothing of the sort. Forgiveness is not a warm sentiment, nor is it a moral concession. It is a clinical, sovereign act of spiritual self-preservation, an internal procedure where the chosen one cuts the toxic energetic cord that ties their present health to the past actions of others. God demands this element not for the comfort of the offender, but because the body cannot flush out its physical toxins while the spirit is busy hoarding emotional poison. The release of past resentment, not for the sake of the other person, but for the liberation of one's own cellular energy, is mandatory for the body's self-cure mechanism to activate. The spiritual truth of unforgiveness is that it creates a perpetual internal stress loop. Every time the memory of the past injury resurfaces, even faintly, the body releases the same neurochemical cocktail that accompanied the original trauma: cortisol, adrenaline, and other stress hormones that drag the nervous system back into the sympathetic fight or flight mode described in point 1. This repeated chemical reactivation forces the body to relive a battle that ended long ago, keeping the system trapped in survival mode. Chronic exposure to these chemicals is intensely inflammatory and is linked to numerous physical disorders: digestive issues, insomnia, migraines, autoimmune flares, weakened immunity, and hormonal imbalance. In simple terms, unforgiveness forces the body to endlessly rehearse its own suffering. Forgiveness, therefore, is not sentimental. It is the spiritual demolition of this toxic feedback loop. Absolute forgiveness is not about reconciliation, nor is it an attempt to rewrite the moral weight of the injury. It does not say what happened was acceptable. It does not excuse, minimize, or erase the offense. Instead, it is a sober declaration of energetic independence. It is the chosen one standing with full spiritual authority and saying, "I release the debt owed to me, not because you deserve release, but because I deserve peace. I refuse to allow your past action to dictate the chemistry of my future body." This statement is not metaphorical, it is physiological. When the chosen one releases the emotional charge attached to the memory, cortisol levels drop, inflammation decreases, the immune system strengthens, and the parasympathetic rest-heal repair mode becomes dominant again. The body, freed from the exhausting task of defending itself against yesterday, finally redirects its energy toward repairing the present. Absolute forgiveness is the turning of the spirit away from the injury and toward wholeness. It is a sacred act of spiritual hygiene, clearing the inner atmosphere so God's healing frequencies can move without obstruction. When the chosen one forgives, they are not freeing the offender. They are freeing their own selves, their own mind, and their own destiny. Point 3, the element of 0-point self-worth, end of self-sabotage. The third element is the 0-point self-worth. Many physical ailments are sustained by an unconscious program of self-punishment, rooted in feelings of unworthiness, guilt, or the perceived need to carry external burdens. 0-point self-worth means the chosen one recognizes their intrinsic, non-negotiable value without condition. This truth, once integrated, shuts down the subconscious programs that command the body to remain afflicted. By accepting that you are fully worthy of perfect health, not because of what you do, but because of who you are as a consecrated vessel, you neutralize the energetic self-sabotage that blocks the natural flow of vitality. This element creates an internal environment where disorder is recognized as a fundamental contradiction to your divine identity. The unworthiness program is often a deep, subtle lie, embedded during early life, traumatic chapters, or intense spiritual trials where the soul was tested under pressure. It manifests as an invisible heaviness in the mind, a subconscious reluctance to receive complete healing or complete success, because the ego believes the pain is either deserved or necessary for identity. Many chosen ones unknowingly carry suffering as a psychological anchor, a false sense of familiarity that convinces the mind that healing is unsafe, or worse, unearned. This internal fracture generates energetic dams in the body's natural circuitry, interrupting the flow of life force and causing stagnation. These stagnations often reveal themselves in areas connected to power, movement, or expression. Lower back pain representing unsupported responsibility, throat issues symbolizing silenced truth, and joint pain reflecting suppressed mobility of purpose. These are not random disorders, they are embodied reflections of unresolved spiritual narratives. 0-point self-worth demands the chosen one retire the victim identity completely. This does not mean denying past pain, but refusing to use it as evidence against your divine identity. True 0-point worth is a state where you no longer negotiate your value with circumstances, opinions, accomplishments, failures, or emotional states. You stand in the awareness that your worth was established before your birth, sealed by the breath of God, and cannot be increased or diminished. From this neutrality, this pure, undistorted center, the subconscious mind receives a new command. Sickness is illogical. Suffering is unnecessary. Punishment is not part of your identity. When this truth becomes internalized, the body must reorganize itself to reflect the upgraded belief system. Spiritual law dictates that the body follows the dominant instruction of the soul. Therefore, when the subconscious accepts that vitality is your rightful state, it immediately begins activating dormant self-healing codes. Cells regain coherence. Energy begins to circulate where it once hesitated. The nervous system stops bracing for punishment and shifts into restoration. You become a clear vessel again, aligned with the natural intelligence designed to sustain your wholeness. 0-point self-worth is the final permission slip the body has been waiting for. An inner decree that liberates you from inherited shame, outdated spiritual contracts, and the invisible burdens that once weighed down your health. When you embody this truth fully, healing is no longer an aspiration. It becomes an inevitable consequence of knowing who you are. Point 4. The element of consecrated intake, honoring the temple. God demands the element of consecrated intake. This extends beyond simple nutrition and refers to the deliberate, reverent process of feeding the temple. It means consuming food and water, not as mere calories, but as high-vibrational, energetic fuel that honors the divine dwelling within. This awareness introduces mindfulness into every act of consumption, naturally steering the chosen one away from low-frequency, toxic, or processed substances that create energetic interference and inflammation. By treating the physical body as the most precious piece of equipment for the final mission, the chosen one ensures that the cellular environment has the purest materials available for its self-reversal and reconstruction process. The distinction between mundane eating and consecrated intake is one of intention and awareness. When intake is merely functional, the chosen one often consumes low-vibrational substances, those stripped of life force or laden with chemicals, which introduce chaos and dense energy into the cellular structure. This creates biological inflammation, the body's physical response to energetic interference. Over time, this inflammation becomes not only a physical burden, but a spiritual distraction, pulling the chosen one out of alignment and lowering their sensitivity to divine instruction. Consecrated intake reverses this downward pull by transforming consumption into an act of devotion. Consecrated intake involves an attitude of sacred stewardship. This means intentionally choosing foods and liquids that resonate with high vitality and are consumed slowly, mindfully, and with gratitude. This process not only provides superior nutritional data, molecules, but also introduces a high energetic frequency, life force, that the cells can utilize for healing. When a chosen one eats with intention, the body recognizes the offering. The nervous system relaxes, digestion improves, and the internal intelligence of the body begins to recalibrate itself toward harmony rather than chaos. Even the simplest act of drinking water becomes a spiritual ritual, an infusion of clarity, purity, and renewal. The spiritual principle here is that the purity of the vessel must match the purity of the mandate. Just as a sacred scroll demands a clean container, a divine assignment demands a body capable of holding, transmitting, and executing high-frequency spiritual commands. The physical body, being the most dense part of the spiritual self, requires the highest quality of material input to maintain the high frequency required for the chosen one's work. A polluted body leads to a foggy mind. A foggy mind leads to a weakened spirit. And a weakened spirit cannot accurately receive or transmit divine signals. But a consecrated vessel, one purified through disciplined intake, becomes a precise instrument for revelation, intuition, and divine execution. In this state, the chosen one begins to experience food not as a burden or temptation, but as a sacred exchange between the physical world and the spiritual assignment. Each meal becomes a covenant. Each drink becomes an offering. And through this daily discipline, the chosen one aligns their biology with their destiny, ensuring that nothing within them contradicts the magnitude of the calling placed upon their life. Point 5, the element of prophetic movement, unlocking stored trauma. The fifth element is prophetic movement. This is not exercise driven by vanity, but gentle, intentional physical movement, walking, stretching, breathing, that serves to unlock stored emotional trauma and static energy held deep within the fascia and muscles. The body often records the narrative of past stress and fear in locked tissue, embedding emotional memories that the mind has long forgotten, but the cells continue to carry. Prophetic movement, especially when performed in nature or with conscious rhythmic breathwork, becomes a kind of spiritual lubricant, loosening the hardened places within you. It gently releases stagnant, low-frequency emotions, such as fear, suppressed grief, and unspoken sorrow that have been physically sequestered, allowing the energy of divine healing to flow unimpeded into every joint, every muscle, and every hidden chamber of the body. The phenomenon of stored trauma is not merely psychological. It is a key spiritual fact. When intense stress or shock occurs, the body's instinctive response is to freeze the emotional energy inside the physical tissues, especially the hips, shoulders, chest, and jaw. These areas act like vaults that hold unprocessed memories, tensions, and energetic impressions. Over time, this trapped density blocks the free flow of qi or life force throughout the system, resulting not only in chronic stiffness or pain, but also in emotional stagnation, spiritual heaviness, and difficulty accessing higher states of clarity and peace. Prophetic movement is the gentle, intentional process of unfreezing these blocks. It is a sacred act of telling the body, You can release now. You are safe. You may open again. What distinguishes prophetic movement from ordinary exercise is its intention. The movement is not performed to attain a physical aesthetic goal or to impress anyone. It is done with the conscious aim of releasing the stored narrative, those buried emotional imprints that quietly shape behavior, mood, and perception. Each motion is slow, mindful, and grounded in deep, rhythmic breathing. Each stretch is an invitation for the body to speak. Each step becomes a quiet prayer of liberation. There must be no judgment of the body's current limitations. Tightness is simply unexpressed history. Fatigue is simply the residue of seasons when rest was denied. As the locked energy begins to dissolve, the chosen one may experience sudden, fleeting emotional releases. Unexpected tears, yawns, waves of warmth, shivers, or the sensation of a weight lifting from the chest or lower back. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. They are signs that the movement is succeeding in its spiritual task, releasing the past so the physical body can fully inhabit the present. Prophetic movement restores the body to its rightful state as a vessel of divine flow. When the old density melts away, the inner pathways open, clarity rises, intuition strengthens, and the chosen one begins the sacred process of self-reversal, returning to their original unburdened spiritual architecture. This is the quiet miracle of movement done with intention. It frees the body so the soul can breathe again. Point 6. The element of high-frequency speech, the word as medicine. The 6th, profoundly powerful element is high-frequency speech. The words you consistently speak about your body and your situation are not descriptive. They are creative and prescriptive. Every syllable you utter carries an energetic assignment. God wants your lips to align with the truth of your divine health blueprint, not the symptoms of your temporary condition. This means your language must become a vessel of spiritual precision, a tool that reinforces the reality heaven has already approved, rather than the illusion the physical world temporarily presents. It requires the constant practice of affirming the desired state. I am whole. My body is repairing itself. Peace reigns in my cells, while refusing to give energetic power to negative diagnoses or fear-based language. When you speak from the frequency of divine truth, your words cease to be mere sounds. They become spiritual technology. High-frequency speech ensures that the word spoken by the chosen one becomes medicine, an energetic command that overrides the cellular memory of disorder and initiates the healing sequence. The spiritual law of vibrational command states that the words spoken by a chosen one, a consecrated vessel, carry immense creative power. A chosen one's voice is not neutral, it is coded with authority. When the chosen one consistently describes their body in terms of illness, lack, decline, or fear, they are unknowingly using their divine mandate to reinforce the very condition they wish to escape. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a loop of low-frequency reinforcement that sustains suffering, not because God wills it, but because the tongue keeps instructing the body to recreate the disorder. High-frequency speech breaks this loop. It is the discipline of spiritual realignment, the daily decision to speak from divine truth rather than physical evidence. It means shifting your language from what is seen to what the divine has decreed. Perfect health, restored wholeness, complete equilibrium. This is not denial, it is mastery. It is the sovereign assertion of spiritual truth over temporary symptoms. When the mind is presented with a symptom, the tongue must respond with the divine affirmation. Symptom, I feel pain. Affirmation, my body is restoring its perfect energetic flow. Symptom, I feel weak. Affirmation, strength is rising within me now. Symptom, I am afraid. Affirmation, peace governs every cell of my being. This constant, quiet, intentional linguistic correction sends a powerful high-frequency signal to the entire cellular structure, instructing the body to align with the divine blueprint embedded within the spoken word. You become both the transmitter and the healer, the one who commands and the one who receives. And over time, your cells learn to respond faster to divine truth than to physical disruption. Your nervous system begins to stabilize. Your organs begin to cooperate with higher order, and your energy field becomes inhospitable to illness. High-frequency speech is not merely a practice, it is a spiritual posture, one that places you in perfect resonance with the Creator's intention for your health. When the chosen one learns to speak only what aligns with divine truth, the body has no choice but to obey. Point 7. The element of daily divine immersion, the source of regeneration. The final and synthesizing element is daily divine immersion. This is not merely a habit, nor is it a spiritual luxury reserved for rare moments of peace. It is the unwavering, disciplined commitment to spend the first and last conscious moments of every single day completely disconnected from the noise of the world and fully submerged in the presence of the divine. This immersion is a sacred technology. It is the chamber where the spirit is recalibrated, the mind is purified, and the body is restored. In this space, the chosen one is not performing a ritual. He is plugging directly into the inexhaustible, pure, high-frequency field of Source. This energetic field functions like a spiritual cellular recharge, instantly repairing microscopic damage, correcting internal disorder, and restoring the original blueprint of divine health that was written into the soul before birth. Nothing regenerates the human vessel more effectively than this. Daily divine immersion becomes the unseen architect holding the entire foundation together. It ensures that the 6 previous elements are not only maintained, but constantly replenished, reinforced, and elevated. Without this practice, even the strongest discipline begins to erode, for the physical body, no matter how trained, how resilient, or how spiritually aware, is still a battery. And like any battery, it is continuously drained by exposure to the low frequencies of the external world, the weight of responsibility, the emotional burdens of others, and the invisible spiritual warfare that surrounds the mission. Daily divine immersion is the recharging station. Without it, the battery inevitably weakens. Energy becomes scattered, the mind grows foggy, the immune system destabilizes, and disorder slips quietly into places where clarity once lived. But with it, everything within the vessel is strengthened, aligned, and held in perfect spiritual order. This immersion time must be treated as non-negotiable and pure. It is not a moment for requests, noise, or distraction. It is the intimate sanctuary where the soul meets its origin. It is a time for silent, receptive prayer, not the kind where you speak endlessly, but the kind where you listen. It is the time for deep gratitude, which opens the spiritual channels and increases the flow of divine energy. It is the time for intentional visualization, where you see the radiant divine light permeating every cell of your being, cleansing, repairing, illuminating, and elevating. As this light floods the body, something extraordinary occurs. The cellular vibration rises. The physical environment inside the body shifts into a frequency that becomes incompatible with disease, stress, fear, and energetic contamination. The pure energy of Source acts as a spiritual antibiotic, dissolving dark residue, neutralizing harmful thought forms, and detoxifying emotional debris that you did not even realize you were carrying. It replenishes the vital life force, chi, prana, spiritual breath, restoring strength at the most fundamental level. This daily practice is the final guarantee that the healing you receive is not temporary, not fragile, and not dependent on external conditions. It becomes permanent, self-regulating, and self-renewing. The vessel becomes sovereign, no longer relying on the world for energy, but drawing directly from the eternal well of the divine. When daily divine immersion is honored faithfully, the chosen one becomes unshakable. The mind grows sharper, the emotions become steadier, the intuition becomes clearer, and the physical body becomes a resilient, spiritually charged instrument capable of carrying the mandate with power, endurance, and divine precision. This is the final seal, the assurance that your vessel is eternally sound for the long, demanding, and glorious journey ahead. Chosen one, your body is not a liability. It is a miracle designed for perfect order. The ailment you experience is merely the final echo of a low-frequency state you are now leaving behind. You must understand that your physical form is not betraying you. It is communicating with you, signaling that deep transformation is underway. Every cell, every pulse, every sensation is responding to the inner shift that has already begun. Your body is not malfunctioning, it is recalibrating. You are stepping out of old patterns, old wounds, old emotional imprints that once weighed heavily on your flesh. Now, what you feel is simply the residue being released. Embrace these 7 elements with calm, determined faith. First, embrace stillness, for it is in silence that your body receives divine instruction. When your mind softens and your spirit settles, your nervous system begins to repair the damage caused by years of tension and emotional strain. Stillness becomes the medicine that rewrites your internal script. Second, embrace breath. Each inhale draws in life, and each exhale releases what no longer belongs. Breath is the bridge between spirit and body, the quiet force that rewires your energy and cleanses your internal environment. Third, embrace nourishment. Not merely food, but what you feed your soul, your thoughts, your words, your beliefs. Your body thrives on alignment. When your inner dialogue becomes healthy, your physical state begins to mirror that truth. Fourth, embrace movement. Not frantic striving, but intentional, gentle motion that reminds your body it is alive, capable, and designed to heal. Movement signals vitality. It tells your cells to awaken, regenerate, and reorganize. Fifth, embrace gratitude for your body. Yes, even now, especially now. Gratitude is the energetic fertilizer that accelerates restoration. When you thank your body, you speak to it as an ally rather than an enemy, and it responds with cooperation. Sixth, embrace faith. Not blind optimism, but the deep knowing that your body is aligned with divine intelligence. Your healing is not random, it is orchestrated. Your restoration is not hypothetical, it is inevitable. Faith transforms fear into fuel and turns waiting into becoming. And seventh, embrace release. Let go of the belief that your healing must look a certain way or follow a specific timeline. Release the pressure, release the fear, release the self-blame. Healing flows where resistance dissolves, and in surrender your body finds permission to rise. As you integrate these 7 elements, you will activate the inherent wisdom and power within your temple. Your body is responding to you. Your words, your posture, your focus, your devotion. It is listening. It is shifting. It is remembering the blueprint it was created with. Wholeness. Rest in the certainty that your body is reversing its state, aligning with the glorious health required for your sovereign purpose. You are not declining, you are ascending, you are not failing, you are transforming. Every breath you take affirms this truth. Amen.